Hey guys, Scripture here with another video, and this is going to be a quicker one, but I want to talk about this whole thing that Sam Witwer revealed, because I saw it, and I kind of was like, what? Because I was looking at who wrote what, and all these different things, and so there's so much to this, more than just meets the eye with this tweet. So the tweet is, of course, Sam Witwer reveals why a scene featuring Darth Revan and Darth Bane talking to the son of Mortis in the Clone Wars was deleted. And then he says, George cut it because he wanted to make it clear there are no Sith ghosts. They cannot conceive of anything beyond death. Which, of course, we all well know. And that's the whole point of them trying to extend their lives and doing all this creepy stuff. And, when I did my sequels reimagined, I thought the only way you could really do it, because I wanted to bring back Vader, you know what I mean? I wanted him to have some involvement, but he couldn't be involved. So, well, Anakin Force Ghost could, but Vader. I wanted him to be there to manipulate Ben, right? That was the whole reason why he was a Vader sycophant, was he's being manipulated. So what I thought, and what I did, was that the major villain in the story actually uses the Force to project what appears to be a Sith Force Ghost, but then it clearly is not. And I thought that kind of made a little more sense. That could kind of work. And so you could still have those scenes, but they wouldn't be real. But what was interesting about this is, okay, so George Lucas cut it because he wanted to make clear there's no Sith ghosts. And then I thought to myself, like, wouldn't Dave Filoni have known this? Wasn't Dave Filoni the executive producer of the Clone Wars? Correct? And yet, George has to step in to stop something like this? That seems pretty stupid to me. It's just another illustration of where I don't believe that Dave ever really cared about what George Lucas really wanted. And another thing about this is, I've always argued with people, George was not that involved with the Clone Wars, clearly, because we already know, that he was there, once or twice a week to just go over some certain things. It was Dave Filoni's baby, guys, for the most part, like the vast majority of it. People don't realize, like, George didn't have time to sit there and go over every single thing. He was getting ideas coming in from authors, from video games, from board games, from toys, from a TV show, from, like, the idea that he could sit there and approve of just everything, and everything that got put out was from him. It's kind of one of those arguments I have with EU people. Like, listen, I'm not saying he didn't approve of a lot of stuff in the EU, but the idea that he just approved of everything, and there's certain things he's literally said that he wouldn't have done. So, sorry. But anyways, not to go down that road. So I want to look at it. It says here that I Googled this, and it says the scene with Darth Bane and Darth Revan talking to the son of Mortis in the Clone Wars was written by George Lucas and Christian Taylor. Well, that doesn't make sense. George Lucas wouldn't have written that for the episode Ghosts of Mortis, but was ultimately cut due to Lucas's views on the Force. Okay, but if he was a co-writer, it never even would have got to that. It never would have got to this point where they actually animated it. Right? It's because he wasn't there. He probably came in 2 weeks later and said, whoa, what are you idiots doing? This isn't what we're doing, because again, he wasn't there all the time. It was Dave Filoni's baby, and Filoni, like he always did, said, I don't care what George wants. And I personally believe strongly that there's a whole bunch of stuff in the Clone Wars that did seep through that George wouldn't have wanted because he couldn't be there all the time. How can you credit George as being one of the writers and he wrote that when he never wanted that and made it very abundantly clear that that wasn't part of his lore? Because in this particular instance, it's actually being honest. It's not saying he's a writer. It's just saying he's created by, and Christian Taylor was the writer. Well, what is Christian Taylor even doing there? We all knew long ago that there was no Sith Force Ghosts. That was established. Why would that even be written in? Who is this guy? Is he a fan of Star Wars, or is he just Dave Filoni's buddy? You know what I'm saying? There's stuff like this that makes you wonder with these guys, because ultimately this is on Dave Filoni as far as I'm concerned, because he's the executive producer. He was the one in control. George wasn't there, and that's the big part of why I wanted to make this video, is to show you guys this clearly illustrates that George was not there all the time. They were doing things without his involvement all the time. And in this particular case, he came in. They had already done animations, not just storyboards, animations. Like the if you look at this, like look at the image. It's like this is what you would do just before you did the final kind of, detailed rendering, right? This is like, you see a lot of this. You even see this in some of the deleted scenes with Revenge of the Sith and stuff. This is like the last step before you finally add in all the details and everything in the rendering process. And but they took it all the way to that point on this basis of their Sith Force ghosts, which, if Dave Filoni is George's protege, he should have known that was a no-no, and it should be a no-no. It's stupid, and it takes away from their desire to just live forever because they can't become Force ghosts. Meanwhile, you look at somebody like Obi-Wan in A New Hope, who allows himself to be taken up into the Force, knowing that he will become more powerful than Vader realizes because now he has access at a level that Vader can't comprehend when it comes to Luke. Vader never knew about all that stuff. So this, again, is just an illustration of what I've been trying to communicate all along about Dave Filoni. He doesn't care. None of these people care. The writer he hired doesn't care. Sam Witwer, for all intents and purposes, where was he in all this? I guess he's just doing the voice. It's not his fault. But, like, was somebody going to speak up and say, hey, we shouldn't really be doing this? No, we're going to get everything ready and almost have it done and almost be sending it to final finishing. And then George has to show up and stop this? This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, obviously he wouldn't have wanted this. Like, where would you think Sith Force Ghosts would have been a thing in George Lucas's Star Wars? Like, how dumb are you? It's just stupidity. But it's not even stupidity. It's just Dave doing his own thing, and that's how he's always rolled. And I'll say it for the millionth time, the Clone Wars is the beginning of the end. I know everybody blames Disney, and yes, of course, they were the ones to finally bury the brand. But it was already dying when the Clone Wars came out. And like I said earlier, George just didn't have time, you guys. He's running multiple businesses, studios, special effects companies that are dealing with multiple different movies at the same time, plus all, like I said earlier, all the different Star Wars products and shows and this and that and the other thing. He didn't have time to approve everything. There's stuff where his team might have approved, right? There might have been people who approved stuff on behalf of George Lucas. A lot of the Expanded Universe authors actually verify that it wasn't like he was picking up the phone. He didn't have time. It was his people that were doing that. Okay? But then there are also cases like this where I don't think anyone was involved other than Dave Filoni, Mr. George Lucas protege, doing something that so obviously breaks lore and trying to get away with it until George shows up and says, like, dude, what are you doing, you moron? I just wanted to do a video about that. I wanted to rant about that and rave about that because I'm really sick of Dave Filoni, guys. I really am so sick of Dave Filoni. I was sick of Dave Filoni a long time ago. I've never been a huge fan of the Clone Wars at all. There's a select... I haven't even watched a lot of it because it's crappy. And it just totally turned me off in terms of the weird stuff they were doing that just didn't match up well. But I don't blame George for it. I don't. I'm not one of these people who's like, well, George approved of that about everything, so that makes it okay. No, he didn't. Clearly, he didn't. He clearly didn't. It's just some stuff is going to slip through the cracks because he doesn't have time. And sometimes his team doesn't have time. And sometimes, I think, his team also approves stuff that he wouldn't have approved, like, and I hate to do this, okay, I'm trying to get you to understand the whole George Lucas dynamic and the EU and Clone Wars and all this stuff, when he said, Luke never gets married, Palpatine dies. He has said that publicly in an interview. It's very obvious. Just Google it, no problem. But in the EU, Luke gets married, Palpatine is revived. He didn't approve that. If he approved that, he wouldn't have said that that didn't happen. So it's the same with this. Clone Wars is poopty. And I don't know. I'm just so sick of Dave Filoni. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this content, please like, subscribe. It always helps the channel. Feel free to check anything else on my channel. Have yourselves a very good day.